Hello there everyone, and welcome to the March edition of Shadow Briefs. So this month we've had loads going on. All started right at the beginning of March when we investigated the Woodchester Mansion. This is a place that's been on my bucket list since I started Shadow Paranormal. What an investigation it was. It's a huge place, and I always enjoy having really big places that just myself, James and Sophie have access to. You've not got any other groups going around there, you've not got any threat of a member of the public suddenly just walking in on you. Yeah, absolutely great. And we did get some interesting activity from there. I'm yet to go over all of the footage and review actually what we had happen. But certainly on the night it does seem that we had a number of interesting events, and I can't wait to share that with you when we've got the episode all put together. We also went back to Minster Lovell Hall in Oxfordshire. Now I did touch upon this in the last episode of Shadow Briefs. I actually went there, I think it was in January or February, and just by myself to film the intro there. But it was such a cool looking place. I thought Sophie and James will love this. So we went back there the other night and done an investigation at the place. Unfortunately, we were met with very bad weather. It was raining all night. But we got an investigation out of it. Seemed very quiet on the activity front, but obviously there is the possibility that once we've gone through some of the footage and we've had a look at sort of what we've captured, audio recordings, photos, things like that, we may have captured something unusual there. But either way, very interesting night, despite the horrendous weather. That same night we also visited an abandoned pub in, I can't remember the name of the village it's in, but essentially the building had suffered massive fire damage about 3 or 4 years ago. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. I didn't know whether we'd even gain access to it, whether if we did gain access it would be in so much ruin we couldn't actually get sort of around any parts of the building. But when we was in there, it was a fascinating place. There was it was like time had stopped still in there, really. There was essentially, you had the breakfast menu still up, you had cups and saucers ready to go out for the breakfast. You still have like the tea bags and stuff ready to be wheeled out as well. It was like time just stopped still. And I think the building caught fire in the middle of the night, so it literally was just like time stopped then, and everything was set up for the next day and never got used. Really fascinating place to have a walk around. And I know it wasn't an especially old place, as I say, it only caught fire a few years ago, but anywhere like that, it's really interesting to have a wander around, especially just seeing how nature takes over places. It's sort of really got like that apocalyptic feel to it when you go in places like that. Another place we investigated this month was the Grizzly Old Hall. This was somewhere that's been on my radar for a few years, and in all honesty I wasn't entirely sure what to make of it. Just looking at the background of it and the history of it, I was thinking, is it going to be one of these places that's kind of hammed up to be something it's not? And certainly for a large portion of the investigation we didn't really have anything, and towards the end, after having a few bits of activity, we decided to get the spirit box out and do the Estes method whilst using that, which I have to say really blew my mind and has certainly changed my perception of the spirit box. For those of you who don't know, this little gizmo here is a spirit box. This is the PSB7 spirit box, one of the more popular ones that are used. Essentially, it's a modified radio. It will scan through radio frequencies at an extremely fast pace. The idea being that spirits or ghosts are able to either manipulate the white noise or push through words. And essentially, it's supposed to be a method of communication with spirits. I used it fairly regularly on investigations up until I'd say 6 or 7 years ago, when I did some experiments with it and realised that all that's coming through on here are radio stations, terrestrial radio stations. You'll just get a little bit of a song that will then be interpreted or sound like a word. You'll get bits of dialogue come through, but all from terrestrial radio stations. So I stopped using it for, as I say, about 6 or 7 years and never really put much thought into it again. And it wasn't until we investigated the Derby jail a couple of years ago, and James was really wanting to do the Estes method. Now what you do with that is you will plug a headphone jack in and have your headphones on. You don't have to, but a lot of people will cover their eyes, wear a blindfold. So all you've got essentially is just the sound of the spirit box rumbling through your head, which, believe me, is a horrible sound. It puts you almost into a trance. And the idea is that the person with the headphones on will then just say what they hear. Every single word that comes through or anything they can make out, they'll just say that. The other people who don't have the headphones on are asking questions, and the idea is that the person with the headphones on doesn't know the answer to these, or doesn't know what questions are being asked. We did it at the Derby jail. Nothing of note or anything that made really any sense came through, and we sort of shelved the idea for a while. But we did it at the Grizzly Old Hall. My God, we basically had a conversation with something, and like I said a moment ago, it's kind of changed my perception of the spirit box and its utilisation in paranormal investigations. I really, yeah, I don't want to say, I can't wait for you guys to see that episode, but it just kind of made me think as an investigator, using different methods to investigate. Quite often we'll make an assumption about a certain method. We'll either say, you know, oh, it doesn't work, it's got too many flaws, or quite opposite, you know, say it's a great method and there's nothing that can be possibly wrong or debunked with it. It just enforces that, you know, you've got to revisit ideas and try them again. You know, not all the time, you know, give it a few years, but, you know, maybe something that you've made an opinion or assumption of some time ago, a few years back, maybe just, you know, dust it off, get it off the shelf and try it again and just see if your opinion has changed on it. And certainly using the spirit box, certainly with the Estes method, I wouldn't use the spirit box just on its own, you know, for a speaker, because that is flawed, and you know what answers you're looking for, so you'll make sense of garbled noise essentially, and attribute it to the location you're at or the question you've asked. But having someone that can't hear the questions being asked saying words and sentences and having a conversation with something, it honestly blew my mind. It is a technique I think we'll revisit again in the future. Logically, the technique makes sense, and it's sort of almost got a barrier in to prevent false positives, but I'd like to investigate it a bit further and just understand it a little bit more, because I was really impressed with what we got that night, and as I say, completely changed my perception of the spirit box. So we've reached that time in the video, everybody's favourite moment. Let's take a look at some paranormal news stories. So, first one here, we have the Basildon Canvey Southend Echo, and this is from the 14th of March. Australian YouTuber Amy's Crypt buys Essex haunted house. Now, Amy's Crypt I have heard of before. I think I may have watched one or two of her videos. I honestly can't remember sort of the legitimacy of it or the format, or whether I particularly liked the videos. But she is someone I've heard of before. But either way, let's go on with the article. An Australian YouTuber who explores paranormal places around the world has bought what has been dubbed Britain's most haunted house, The Cage in St Osyth. The Cage is a place we investigated back in 2018. Yeah, it's an interesting place to say the least. I know obviously since we investigated, I think it's had another owner since then. It was probably one of the least haunted places we've ever been to, and also one of the most disappointing investigations we've done for a variety of reasons. I'd like to get Sophie and James on one of these shadow briefs just to share their opinions on the Cage, but it was, yeah, it certainly wasn't a place that I would recommend investigating, just because there didn't seem to be anything there. And not just that, a lot of the history and a lot of the stories surrounding the Cage are just false. They're fabricated stories. So just bear that in mind with anything like this. The building has been bought by Amy's Crypt. Amy is a paranormal investigator who posts on YouTube and has more than 300,000 subscribers. Wish I did. Amy revealed the news in a live streamed video with husband Jared, where they answered fans' questions. In the video, Amy said there's been lots of stories associated with this place with ghosts and the paranormal, and there are even so many types of paranormal activities that have happened here. Things like people seeing shadows, people being physically touched, physical sensations, cold spots, full-bodied apparitions. One of the most prevalent things is that nobody can stay in the house for very long, so it sells every couple of years like clockwork, which was true when we bought it because the previous owner had it for 4 years. That is a slight lie. I had spoken to someone online who actually lived in the Cage, must have been early 2000s. I don't know the exact date, and I can't remember if I ever asked her the exact date. She told me that they never had any kind of paranormal activity there. Nothing strange ever happened. Completely normal house by all accounts. What we did feel whilst we were there, it's a very cold house. There's a lot of, I mean, it's an old building, so you've obviously got a lot of windows that have drafts coming through, drafts under doors. I imagine it's a place in the winter that's very, very difficult to keep warm. And not to mention, I think it does need a lot of renovation work doing on it. And obviously being a historic building, I'd imagine there's a lot of barriers that prevent certain things being done, and also a huge amount of money. So I think, and I don't know, but I wonder if maybe they're the reasons why this place keeps selling over and over again, rather than any kind of paranormal event. So yeah, it is true, it has sold multiple times over the last few years, but I don't believe it's for ghosts. The couple plan to renovate the house and make it a safe place for spirits and preserve the history of the building, especially about the women who were hanged for witchcraft. Amy said in her Q&A, if we have people come through, I can't promise that a ghost does something for you, but I can promise that we have done our best to make this a welcoming place where you can come and learn about history and get something out of the experience that is worthwhile. The earliest part of the cottage, known as the cage, was used to hold prisoners accused of witchcraft. A plaque on the side of the house describes the plight of Ursula Kemp as an Oathsith woman who called upon by her neighbours to heal ailments and sickness. She was accused, tried and found guilty of witchcraft and was hanged in 1582. Men, women and children were detained in the cage until 1908. Vanessa Mitchell, the owner of the house between 2004 and 2020, fled the house after claiming she was physically attacked by spirits. She said ghostly figures plagued her, pushed her over while pregnant, and even witnessed mysterious blood splatters appear. In fact, it was whilst we were there, it was Vanessa Mitchell who was the lady that owned it then, and she was telling, whilst we were sort of there with her, she was telling us stories about sort of things that have happened and, you know, events there, and I don't want to call her a liar, but she was telling porcupines about a lot of things, because we knew that, you know, certain facts about the place that she was telling us were completely wrong. But, you know, either way, it's another building that's hopefully going to be looked after for years to come, which is always a good thing. Here we are, Wales Online. Article here from 21st of February, so not quite March, but it will do. Ring doorbell clip catches ghosts of miner's wife floating past mum in street, then dissolves into thin air. So this was actually an article I heard about on the radio. I've not actually seen the footage yet, so I thought I'd not watch it until you can join me whilst I see it for the first time. The doorbell footage appears to show a 1940s character moving through the street. A mum claims the ghost of a miner's wife floated past her street, only realising when a neighbour revealed footage of the ghoul disappearing. So, doesn't appear to be loading. Here we are, luckily I've been able to find it on YouTube. Let's have a watch. I'm assuming this lady here is the one that we're talking about. Yeah, to me, as she walks past, it looks like sort of digital glitching or something like that. I mean, yeah, she does appear to sort of fade from view. Either this could genuinely be a very nice piece of footage of an actual apparition walking around in broad daylight, which is, of course, always a possibility. To me, it looks like it's just someone that's walked past on the footage, and for whatever reason, you know, due to the processing of the footage, I mean, these Ring doorbells they're designed to capture people or movement in front of the doorbell. They're not supposed to be high quality. They're just to show, you know, has someone hit my car out the front? Did someone walk past here and steal something at this time in the morning? They're not supposed to show anything in great detail. So the processes on them isn't great, and to me it just looks like for whatever reason it struggles processing there. Only thing I will say, she does look quite tall. So yeah, another thing I think it could potentially be is just an error on the camera. Maybe it's sort of an overwritten piece of footage. I have heard, certainly with doorbells like this, sensor burn, which is where an image is kind of burned into the sensor of the camera, and it will kind of replay it. And my guess would be, because this is pointed at the same angle, the background on this will be burned into the camera potentially. I don't know, and I don't know the science behind it, so bear with me, it's just an idea. And I wonder if this is just an old piece of footage that's kind of been overlaid with a new piece of footage. But yeah, it's interesting. Like I say, it could be a real ghost, but I think it may be a technical malfunction on the camera personally. And here we are, final article. Danny Robbins' Uncanny Fear of the Dark will tour the UK in 2025-2026. I know this is something that Sophie is very, very happy for and is looking forward to. A brand new Uncanny stage show, Uncanny Fear of the Dark, will embark on a UK tour from September 25 to March 26. The first Uncanny live stage show, I Know What I Saw, was one of the best-selling paranormal shows in theatre history. Now Danny Robbins and his team of experts are back with an all-new, thrillingly terrifying, real-life stories and witness accounts that will have audiences utterly gripped. This is no ordinary podcast show. This is a storytelling and paranormal investigation at its peak. With a backdrop of spine-tingling sound design, video production and theatrical magic, Danny will bring to life accounts of hauntings, apparitions, poltergeists, UFOs, and events that seem to defy logical explanation, examining them with the help of experts, psychologist Dr. Kieran O'Keefe and writer and parapsychologist Evelyn Hollow, with input from the audiences who will get the chance to ask questions, come up with theories and share their own potentially paranormal experiences. So Uncanny is a show that loads of people have told me to watch. I've never actually watched it, but everyone that has spoken to me about it have said it's absolutely fantastic. I need to watch it, so I'll make that my mission this year. I will watch the first and second series of Uncanny. From what I understand, the concept of the show is they'll get someone on there that's had a paranormal experience, they'll tell their story, and then they'll have comments from a skeptic and a believer as to what they believe could have actually happened. It's a sort of a new approach to kind of paranormal TV. And as I say, I've only heard good things about it, so I really do need to get on and watch that. And the fact there's a stage show is there, it seems, from what I understand looking at this, the stage show will be very much the same sort of concept as what the TV show is. It will have stories from people, and then a discussion from both sides of the argument. I know Most Haunted used to do a stage show, and I suppose this in a way is filling that spot. But certainly he's looked at in a much better light than the Most Haunted ever was. Yeah, certainly if I watch a few episodes of Uncanny and I like it, I certainly will look into getting tickets for the stage show. Yeah, just thought I'd share that with you. Something positive to see. So earlier in the month I went for a day trip out to a lovely little area in Cambridgeshire called Wicken Fen, and to the nature reserve there. It's a place that's certainly by darkness very, very atmospheric. But by daylight, it's a lovely place to go for a walk. There's families around there going for bike rides, dog walking, but it's also got a number of ghosts that are said to haunt there. So I thought I'd take you out for the day with us and to have a little look around. Hope you enjoy. So today we've come for a little pot around Wicken Fen in Cambridgeshire. Now I absolutely love Wicken Fen. My dad actually had a boat in Ely when I was growing up, so we came here quite often. Sort of most weekends we'd either be up this way. We used to take the dinghy out on the little sort of the little rivers that came off to the side that actually runs through Wicken Fen. So I've spent a huge amount of time here, and it transpires as well that Wicken Fen is also supposed to be haunted. There have been a lot of different reports and sightings from here. The main one is the black shuck is supposed to haunt this area, the black phantom dog with glowing red eyes. Sometimes they're described as being the size of saucers. So the Wicken Fen is a location where that's supposed to roam. I've not actually found many reports of any sightings around here. I think that is more sort of embedded in folklore rather than sort of eyewitness accounts. There's also been stories of Roman soldiers walking through here that disappear and they walk into the sort of the hedgerows. And the main sighting, the main sort of unusual supernatural events to occur around here is sightings of what's known as the Lantern Men. There are a few different variations of what the Lantern Men are supposed to be. Some people think that they're the ghosts of old fen workers that are carrying their oil lamps to work by darkness, and all we can see today is just the glow of their oil lamps sort of walking around the fenlands here. There's also some that say there's sort of evil spirits that inhabit this area, and all the way through to sort of UFOs and connections with that sort of thing. Tied in again with the folklore, apparently whistling attracts the lantern men. So if you're walking along here at night and you're whistling to yourself, it's supposed to attract these ghost lights towards you. And supposedly, if you lay face down in the mud and bury your mouth in the earth, they'll lose interest in you, and you'll be saved from it. So very interesting. Again, I think that's sort of more tied in with folklore, but it's certainly very, very prevalent folklore. A lot of people that live around this area, certainly going back sort of 3-4 generations, that's been, you know, it's very, very ingrained into the community around here. There's also theories that marsh gases being emitted from the earth, especially around here being in Fenlands, there's a lot of sort of marsh gases and things like that. Apparently, the idea is that these gases then get ignited or lit and they turn into sort of wispy lights or ghost lights, which is what could explain some of these sightings. But yeah, overall, I'm not entirely sure what to make of the lantern man. There seems to be a fair few, I say, variations and versions of the story. I think it's a very interesting one. Certainly growing up around here, I did an awful lot of walking around this area when it was dark, or certainly at dusk. I must admit, I never felt anything strange or ever saw anything unusual. Obviously, being a nature reserve, you do get an awful lot of animals scurrying by, and when it does get dark, the reed beds and the trees around do take on some quite ominous appearances, and there's a lot of strange sounds as well, as I say, with animals and things like that. But certainly, as I say, growing up around here right from a small child through to my sort of early teens, I never had any kind of experiences here. But it is certainly a place that I wonder, maybe if we could do sort of a small investigation here, just maybe even just a walk through here whilst it's dark or whilst it's a bit quieter, just see if anything does happen, if there is anything unusual, and mostly if we'd see any unusual lights floating around here. Obviously there are boats that do sort of pop up from time to time, so I wonder if some of these lantern men sightings have in fact just been lights on boats. But yeah, certainly a fascinating place, and it's a lovely place to come for a walk. And I think, was it today, 9th of March? First sunny day we've had of the year, so yeah, great day out. And if you are interested about what I've discussed today about Wycombe Fen, I did film a documentary here about 3 years ago, so if you wanted to go and check that out, it's got a lot more information than what I've briefly touched upon today. But yeah, if you enjoy it, yeah, pop over and have a look. So that's all we've got time for this video. As always, if you've got any questions you'd like me to answer, if there's any subjects you'd like me to discuss and talk about on the next video, then please leave it down in the comments or drop me a message or an email, and we'll see what we can do. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.